welcome to Wind, Reel, and Print. My name is Ryan.
And my name is Kevin.
And today we're going to be talking about a double feature. Ooh, there we go. Get the crowd pumping. Show business, folks.
Oh, yeah.
What is show business? Is it a dirty business? I don't know what I'm saying anymore. I didn't come up with this ahead of time. I'm vibing here.
You're reading off a script.
Hey, you're lying. Kevin's lying. Why would I write that in the script, Kevin? Why would I embarrass myself via script? You can hear it in my voice.
You're still reading it.
Stop it. Audience, I will cancel this and we will start over. Showgirls and All About Eve. Maybe the better way to frame this is one of them a camp masterpiece? Is the other...
They're both camp masterpieces.
Maybe. I would love to hear All About Eve. All About Eve, a camp masterpiece. That's an interesting thought. Okay. And I was trying to think of a good thing like that to say about All About Eve.
Sure.
What is it? But regardless, we have two very interesting films. What do you think is the right one to start with? And also, do you have anything you want to open up with right out the gate?
Yeah. So, this was also kind of, I guess, I don't know. This was kind of like a shoe-in episode, right? We were just like looking to fill in a gap in our thing. So
I had talked about Showgirls a number of times. I'd seen it recently, and I think it was kind of on your radar to see.
Yeah. So I had there was a screening at Castro. They showed Sunset Boulevard and All About Eve. I think on 35.
Oh, that's amazing.
Which was fucking sick. But so
you saw it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it was awesome. So this guy, I forget his name. I'm so sorry. But he hosts this show. And he's a great host. He's like bringing in history, brings in little like artifacts. Like he'll bring like VHS tapes of like some movies of the same director, or like records of the score. You know, he'll bring in like cool memorabilia type shit. Anyways, he had mentioned that All About Eve and Showgirls are basically the same movie. And I was like, what? That's crazy. I don't know that much about Showgirls. All I know is like the kind of controversy behind it, I guess. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh, that'd be an interesting like double feature. So when you had mentioned, you know, needing a thing, I guess this was one of the first ideas that came to mind.
Yeah.
So for today, I kind of wanted to base the discussion around examining the narrative similarities that are obvious and not so obvious within All About Eve and Showgirls. So kind of starting with All About Eve and setting the precedent of like what this narrative is, and then going into Showgirls and how they take that narrative and kind of blow it up into what it is. Yeah.
Well, I think the obvious thing to talk about first is the biggest similarity, which is that it is about a character kind of absorbing the spotlight, like taking the next generation of performer and what that does to the old guard, and what a cutthroat business it can be, right. And I think both of these are very there is a lot of action in them, but they use it differently. Mm-hmm. Like neither is action in the classic guns a-blazing sense. Mm-hmm. And obviously All About Eve is going to be much more wordplay. You know, it comes from that era. It's it's very smart and wry and everything when it comes to like what it's saying. And I loved it so much. And then Showgirls is sex as action. Right. And that's very explicit. So both have like two different languages to journey down this. Mm-hmm. But those are the most obvious, you know, lowest hanging fruit that I can say about kind of the similarities between the two.
Yeah. I would even go as far to say like the whole narrative arc is like almost exactly the same. Yeah,
kind of like come from the small town sort of thing. Are you talking about specifically about our lead?
Just in the way certain plot elements are placed, like kind of this side character being an accomplice in knocking the old star off the pedestal and allowing the young star to come in and fill the shoes. How that's kind of like a premeditated act within both films. Having the producer boyfriend kind of character who like his adoration for the younger star is also what propels this kind of thing into it.
Very Red Shoes as well.
Yeah.
When you think about it, Red Shoes has a very similar
very true, yeah,
sort of style.
Yeah, critiquing the industry in that kind of way.
And how you get into the industry and what it takes to get into it.
Right. Yeah. And then the levels of like performativity, I feel like are kind of similar just in the meta aspects of it.
Yeah.
Obviously,
over the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, so according to Wikipedia, All About Eve has long been a favored film among gay audiences, likely due to its campy overtones, specifically with Bette Davis.
Yes. Oh, she's so good in it. And
yeah.
When she is either drunk or yelling.
It goes.
It's so much fun. Yeah, it's so great. And when she realizes just how she's being fucked over.
Yeah.
The movie gets so good because she can really play in that space.
It's so good.
Oh, she's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So playful and fun.
Yeah.
I liked All About Eve. I read something how this movie is a commentary on Broadway versus Hollywood. That this whole film is like a jab at Hollywood. The way it mentioned San Francisco as like, I said something about like praising San Francisco.
Yeah.
Like that was like a direct jab at LA or something. Yeah, something about that.
Yeah.
Because both of these films mention the Bay Area.
Yeah. They got the little Bay Area touch.
Yeah.
Little dab. Dab will do ya.
Just a
of the Bay. Yeah.
With All About Eve being shot in
the
SF.
current theater. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
I'm definitely never going to look at it the same. I'm going to be like, oh, great.
It's pretty wild.
That's cool.
Yeah. Cool little tidbit.
I love that.
Yeah. So setting up All About Eve as like the precedent of this sort of narrative, and then looking at like how Paul Verhoeven adapts this structure into Showgirls within his sort of like kind of aesthetic and like filmmaking viewpoints and stuff, because you see a lot of the similar just like watching Showgirls, I was like, this is almost exactly the same movie, like just in the whole operation of it. But I kind of like this a little more.
Yeah, I mean,
it's kind of perfect the way it's written to me. Like,
yeah.
The subtext of everything. Yeah. The way it's like building up to a crescendo. Yeah.
And obviously the kind of what is kind of coming out and kind of the consensus now is slowly building that it was a little more intentional, where like back then it was very much like, this is terrible.
Yeah.
And it's terrible because it's bad.
Right.
And it's just done bad. It's acted poorly.
Bad, yeah.
But I watch it, and especially knowing Paul Verhoeven and I'm a big fan of his films.
Yeah.
It feels like he has all the power in the world and
knows
does
what he's
it.
doing.
And and his stages, when they're performing on stage, they're so insane, like the volcano scenes, and like it just he found a way to do those big epic shows and the violence and the energy in Las Vegas on the stage. And that's just so cool because the energy is there. Like seeing them dancing. And what is our lead actor's name in
Elizabeth
Showgirls?
Berkley?
Yeah. Like she is so painful, but good. Like it's
cringy.
She's so quick. Like she's bipolar.
Yeah,
you know, like she is
manic and
like she's so quick to change.
Yeah,
and you can say it's the writing, you could say it's the acting, and maybe it's a mix of everything.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, and I think it works.
Yeah.
And it's kind of it is fun to have a character like that.
Yeah.
And have all the other parts of the movie match her energy.
Yeah.
Like they're yelling right back at her.
Right.
And
I thought the film did an interesting thing of like positioning these weird kind of outlandish characters against normal people. Like all the side character, like the normal world characters are kind of juxtaposed against their kind of craziness. I feel like I don't know. I forget exactly what, but there were like certain instances where like only the characters within this world kind of act out in that sort of way, and then everyone else is completely normal and like of kind of our perspective. I guess. It was just like super entertaining.
It kind of plays with the idea that you kind of have to be insane to want fame.
Yeah, maybe.
Just like Power's the same thing. Like there isn't. You have to
it's an inherent absurdity.
Yeah, and All About Eve has that too.
Yeah,
like
true.
there is like a selling your soul to do it.
Yeah,
and you have to sacrifice morals to get somewhere.
And like almost everyone involved is at fault or playing dumb or something. Yeah. I had a great time.
It was,
and even just the representation of sex too. It was like super interesting. I thought it was like a satire of sex in a way.
Yeah,
like the pool scene. That shit was so funny.
It's insane, and I love Kyle MacLachlan in this movie. He is just wild, and also goes there 100% to be this absolute psychopath.
Yeah.
But yeah, sex is used
as comedy.
Yeah, it's so crazy. But I also don't know, like, especially the pool scene, is it played for laughs? I don't know. Yeah. I don't think, in my opinion, I don't think so. It is funny.
I have to think it is because that it was so over the top and like unexplainably weird. Like just that interaction, you know?
It was so crazy.
Because to do that and then explain that, I don't know. So you're arguing that it was just a bad decision, or
I wouldn't say it was a bad decision. I just think it was like turning it up to 11.
Yeah.
Like it felt absolutely in the same film language that was being spoken. Like it matched everything. And of course, if there's going to be a sex scene in the pool, it's going to get this crazy. It's going to be basically waterboarding her.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Someone's called it aerobic sex scene.
Yeah. It's crazy. I don't know. It matched all the other energy to me.
Yeah.
I think they just told her like, hey,
do this
dude,
thing. Yeah.
You are this character still. What would you happen? And she puts her whole body into it.
It's so
everything. And so how else is she going to do it in the pool?
Right.
Like it has to be done that way.
Right.
I think Kyle MacLachlan is almost is kind of like
surrogate character.
Yeah. He kind of, I think kind of proves my point a little bit in that he's not really acting out. Things are happening on him.
Yeah.
And he's kind of into it, but you don't see him going, well, it's always just her.
Right.
So it feels like it's maybe the actor's choice or the director's choice.
Yeah.
But it is a commitment to the bit.
For sure.
That her character is insane.
Well, I feel like that was part of her arc because that, like her kind of, her confusion between sex and performance is kind of the crux of the film, I think, because there's multiple points where these two things are clashing in the pool. Also, when she's like dancing with that one choreographer, and then it gets into a sex thing, and she's like, "Oh, I'm on my period" or whatever. Like, there's always moments where she doesn't know if she's dancing or having sex. Like in the club again with Kyle MacLachlan too. Like that is something that is like confused in her mind, sort of a thing. You know?
So she's performing even when she's in the pool.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So to her, that's like part of the performance for her, or whatever, or either that's a performance or performance is sex for her. You know, like I don't know, whatever.
It does feel like the lines blur.
Yeah.
Like, and it does bleed into her life, and then it is just her now.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So I thought that was like an interesting. I just felt the character arc in this very strongly, like the way it like was presented, and then the way it's written was very classically like 3-act structure to me, just like very well written and stuff.
Yeah.
And then I thought the ending with this kind of like loop repetition thing, it reminded me of Nights of Cabiria from Fellini. Like he kind of does a similar thing where, you know, these characters don't actually learn anything. They just like keep going and continue the cycle. And almost like the kind of, to me, that communicates how patriarchy or like the systems of patriarchy, it is a cycle that like we just keep going down into, and that it's inescapable in a sense. Yeah.
The ending. Yeah, it is weird to not have the lesson really be learned, and that she's just as and it ends up going actual full circle with having the real, like the same character that she met at the beginning,
right?
Just like doesn't make any logical sense at all, but she gets a ride with him again.
Like complete narrative coincidence.
It's just like, oh yeah, we're just gonna check this box and we're gonna have this attach. But yeah, that's interesting. And then do you think some of those patriarchal things apply at all to All About Eve? Or is that specifically a Showgirls thing? Just a thought experiment? Just poking the bear.
That's a great question.
I mean, obviously, there's a very Hays Code quality to All About Eve, where it's like she has to be punished at the end by kind of being stuck with that guy who's going to take advantage of her. And it felt like a, like, you're being punished sort of thing.
For Eve?
Yeah, for Eve. And that was the one part of the movie I didn't like, in that because it always feels like in the Hays Code era of films, like you can just tell when it's like they're putting a little weight on the scale a little bit. I feel that way about Treasure of Sierra Madre a lot. Great movie, but all of a sudden it's just like the lead has to die for what? Why? Like that doesn't play with any of the other things.
Yeah.
And then I also don't want to I want to give credit to the filmmakers. Like they knew the Hays Code existed, so they would make a film that would.
I mean, even Hitchcock would
exactly, like Hitchcock being, I think, the master of making it work. And I mean, to have made some of the best films in that, and to still have sex and death and all of those things in those films still,
right? And
doing it so intelligently that we still. I mean, there's a reason his movies still last.
His films are sexy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That plays a huge. Sex and violence is very Hitchcockian. But yeah, there is like I guess the patriarchal thing that I just see is like, it is another male controlling situation. That we kind of get to in that. For sure. I don't know if it really ends up like saying it's, it does say it's cyclical in All About Eve, because in the end, she gets an assistant that does the same thing.
Yes. Wow. Yeah.
We made it.
Got there.
It is. Yeah. So both are kind of saying the same thing, that like it just keeps going.
Yeah. Holy shit.
Oh shit. How did we forget that?
Whoa. Yeah.
That is literally what the movie message is.
Yeah. Wow.
Ooh,
Yeah, fell into that one, huh?
Yeah, exactly. So that is funny that from that comment, from that screening that you went to, it really did kind of bore out true and correct.
It's exactly the same.
It is. Yeah, it's interesting. And then I want to give a special shout out to Marilyn Monroe, who shows up very briefly in All About Eve, but
so
stand out. It is kind of like, she does feel like, and maybe it's just because she's so famous, but as soon as she's on screen, it's like, oh my, like
that's Marilyn Monroe.
That's Marilyn Monroe. It's just, and I did, obviously she just plays like a ditzy blonde, but I loved her character in it. I loved all the characters in All About Eve. I thought they were so much fun, and it was just so
witty. Yeah.
So witty. Yeah. And obviously, Bette Davis being the Queen Mother of us all. So unbelievably good.
The Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf quote.
You would know it better than me. I don't know.
I am the Earth Mother and you are all flops.
Okay, there we go. Right on.
Yeah.
Showgirls and All About Eve, a great double feature, and a double, like, I think a lot of people are going to be like, Showgirls, really?
It's Showgirls, so good.
You guys, it's back now. It's hot now.
It's so good.
It's hot now.
Yeah, both Showgirls as well gets drag show midnight screenings.
Yeah.
So both of these films have kind of what's like a queer cult kind of following to it. Yeah.
I love them.
Which is great. Because I think both films do like target gender roles and performance in interesting ways.
Yeah. Right on, folks. There we go. That's a quick, tight 20.
Yeah.
Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time. That's a wrap.
Wind Reel in Print is a podcast by Salad Brain Productions. You can find us on Instagram at Wind Reel in Print Pod. You can also find us wherever you get your podcasts. And please, if you like the show, leave a rating and review. We'll see you next time.